Welcome to the Water People podcast. Today, we're in conversation with Jake Mackenzie, an all-around waterman, entrepreneur, and one of the most surf-stoked people we know.
Well, to me, Jake Mackenzie is a mate, just a good mate, who's also a fella that loves to dive deep into life, like any part of life. And that is so fun to be around, like when we've had adventures in Indonesia or, towards India or in Australia and in Hawaii and bigger waves where you see, deeper parts of someone's personality. Jake's always there with a smile and ready to just go, sure, man, let's do it. Why not? Let's go. And you're just like, all right, let's do that then. And so I love that willingness about Jake where he's just like, this might be a dangerous thing to do, but hey, I might feel something I've never felt before or see something that I never imagined I would see. And I love that attribute, that willingness to just give things a go, and that's really gone in some pretty gnarly directions, in life. And I didn't know him yesteryear when he was a struggling addict, but this is a man who's really gone to the dark side and gone into the shadowy world and come back and is now helping others navigate that space and do better and be a better version of themselves. And that's really wonderful. And all of that too with just a great little mischief take on things,
He's so cheeky.
Yeah, just like, we love to say he's Uncle Jokey for our little 2-year-old boy, and he's just up for a good laugh, but also willing to dive deep.
Yeah, and he's also a really interesting shaper of surf culture. I find he hangs with some pretty notable watermen, and he's an amazing waterman himself.
Yeah, and waterwomen. He's done plenty of diving with Kimmy when she went to Indonesia and they did the workshop stuff up at Uluwatu. And I guess you can think we're measured by the company we keep. And, Jakey's mates with Tommy Carroll and all that kind of world, and goes diving with Mark Healy in Hawaii when he's there. And that's some pretty classy company. And I think that just speaks to the kind of person he is. And yeah, always up for an adventure. I love that.
He's an epic storyteller, so he had no idea in which direction his story was going to go. But he ended up recounting his sort of spiritual flash that led him to recovery from addiction. And that was a story we hadn't really heard before. And I think it will speak to a lot of people who have struggled with addiction or who have family members who are struggling with addiction. Yeah, we just felt like it was important to shine some light on kind of a taboo issue. Surf culture
but it is a really common story.
Absolutely taboo to talk about openly in some ways, but I mean, there's no shortage of substance abuse in surf culture.
Yeah, exactly. And it's something that's been around decades and decades. There's amazing writing that was done in the 70s by this guru who happened to surf, Indian kind of yogi guru, and he was sort of enlightening everyone on the fact that when we surf, we have these incredible highs. We're really stoked when we're in the water, and you come back to land, and you kind of can't compare that high to many other things on land, and so we keep craving, we keep looking for those highs. We gain an attachment to those highs we experience in the water, and so when we're on land, we do look for those. You can look for them with other dangerous pursuits, all kinds of stuff that we will do, skateboarding, skydiving, base jumping, any of that sort of stuff, or even the pursuits of, deep diving, free diving, that kind of stuff can be that thing of going to that edge. But it also typically lends itself to drinking and smoking and partying and looking for highs that are quick and easy that you can get between the surfing peaks. And that's just an interesting part of culture that's actually been talked about in little degrees, but it has been talked about maybe in hushed tones for decades now. A long, long time. Surfers have been grappling with this issue, and it makes me think about the one line an older surfer said in a Searching for Michael Peterson movie where they were saying, I don't ever remember seeing, Joe Bloggs down the beach and asking them how they're going, and they're saying, oh yeah, I had a really good hit of heroin yesterday, and life's looking really good, things are going really well. You just don't hear those stories of people with addiction to substance coming out with a wonderful life and leading to all these great experiences, there has to be some sort of cathartic moment or crisis moment or trauma, something that's a line in the sand that just makes that change from that way to the new way. And that's where Jake goes with his story in a pretty cosmic way, which is a great story to listen to.
He talks about the imperativeness of having to be personally ready to make a change. And he shares with us that point in his life when he found himself transported from a sort of sweet, clean surfing life in Hawaii to what he calls a den of iniquity in the city of Prague, surrounded by gargoyles and some pretty dark places, surrounded by dark people.
Yeah, and talking about like the 12-step program, the brotherhood of all that, that's an experience that I've had with an older surfing elder and seen that for him, and this is a cat who was like one of the first crew to really pioneer pipeline way, way back in the day. He was on, Surfer magazine posters, all that kind of stuff, a very out there individual in the surfing timeline. And he took me to one of the meetings as kind of a sponsor or friend or whatever. And it was amazing to see this brotherhood, this connection that happens, the honesty, the brutal honesty that occurs there, and that it is this sort of subliminal current of support that flows around our culture and communities, but isn't really openly spoken about that much. There's a level of privacy there that's maintained for everyone in the program. But for me, it was a really great insight into that, and to see that, wow, this is working for a lot of people. No matter what religious attachments you have, no matter what cultural attachments you have, it's working across borders and across gender and age, and that's pretty amazing.
Jake is a pretty spiritually inquisitive guy, and he calls the 12-step program unparalleled in its spiritual brotherhood. That's pretty beautiful.
Yeah, it's great.
Well, we started this conversation with Jake Mackenzie in the same place we always do, which is with the question about a time or experience after which he was never the same. Before we get started, we wanted to express our gratitude for those of you who have listened with us this season. When you like, share, rate, and comment on or about the podcast, it really does help to spread the word. Our family makes the Water People podcast with the help of Shannon Carroll, our sound engineer, and we're hoping to get a little more funding to make the podcast even better next season. You can help by spreading the word. We only have 3 more episodes to go, and wanted to remind you that we're giving away a brand new Gary McNeil surfboard and a quiver of comfy footwear from Sanook to one lucky listener. All you have to do to win is rate the podcast and comment wherever you subscribe. Thanks for listening with us.
I have a very vivid memory of sitting on Cocoa Head and looking out across this beautiful vista of the south shore of Oahu, up on Wilhelmina Rise, actually. A very cool switchback trail of roads that took you up to this cool little peak. And I was sat there one morning on sunrise, and I was looking out across Cocoa Head, Hawaii Kai Zone, Diamond Head, and then Waikiki, and it was sunrise. It was beautiful. And I had a papaya, this delicious Hawaiian sunrise papaya, and I squeezed a little bit of lime on it, and I was just eating this papaya, just savoring everything, the view, the papaya, and just the state of my life being just full of light and peace, well, mostly. And then fast forward 5 months, I was living in a squat in Prague, of all places, and it was midwinter, and it was very cold, and snowing, in fact, outside, and I was living in a squat with, there was a very large black Suriname transvestite, and then there was this crazy guy from London with this mohawk. More than anything, basically it was a den of vampires is what it was. It was like a real den of iniquity in like a concrete bunker almost is what it felt like. And I remember always flashing on that, from being in the light on Wilhelmina Rise to being transported miraculously backwards to a place of real cold isolation and darkness. And to me, that's some definition of addiction, and that's where my kind of the point of focus is for me, of being so clear and calm and peaceful and on the ocean and feeling the healing, and through my own will and choices to a place of, darkness, basically, trying to fill the inside with the unfillable, unquenchable. It's like the spirit. It's no wonder spirits are called spirit. You're trying to fill the spirit with spirits. So I came into this body and this life with that particular karma, and potentially others that, like, I've had flashes of other existences where I've seen very clearly that ailment afflicting my peace of mind and happiness and the ability to connect, and feel real freedom. Because I think the addiction just is the bondage. It has you, in so many ways, like addiction to everything, more money, prestige, property, fame, sex, drugs, alcohol, there's so many manifestations of it. The quest is to find God, whatever shape or form that is, whatever word and concept and paradigm we want to use to find that connection, and feel that desire and need inside with that, Yeah, so connection. Connection with people, connection with nature, connection with surfing, connection with the ocean, connection with the kids, connection with Jesus, connection with Buddha, whatever the connection is. I think it's all the connection. Connection on a heart level between people. I still do meetings. I still am in recovery and 12-step fellowships, and that's what I love. I love the connection that we have, that beyond words. Same with music. Same with surfing. It's that connection. You can't define that. It's just there's something special. So I found myself in Prague. And Prague's a really fascinating city. The Templar Knights were centered there, and there was a lot of real mystic energy. Like, they say that King Kral, who was one of the founders of Prague, pulled in Ayurvedic and Indian architects to design it in a specific energetic format so that it was in line. It's like the center of Europe. So they say a lot of the ley lines, a lot of the energy lines run through Prague, like, the Michael and Mary line that runs through Glastonbury and then goes to Cheops and to pyramids. And then, these lines, the energy lines, Prague is a center. And so it's a real potent place. So anyway, I found it to be quite a mystic place. And I ended up doing a lot of psychotropics when I was there and a lot of other things. And so I had a real... I was not on this planet at all. I was like truly off, psychotically in some ways, not grounded, you know what I mean? Because I think people can use all sorts of substances and connect. And I think there are shamans and even, practitioners of medicine people who can do that and who have the ability to stay grounded and bring it back to be of service. But for me, with my excessive nature and unquenchable thirst for more and, self-absorption and self-destruction at the same time, the disease of addiction, I'm not that type of person. So I know for myself, one is too many and 1,000 isn't enough. So I found myself in Prague ingesting large quantities of everything regularly, in fact, all the time, in this really bizarre atmosphere with these crazy people, and not rising until the sun was setting and sleeping when the sun's rising, and just living in this kind of like catacomb kind of world of like, acid and heroin and, just badness really. And then I keep thinking of the papaya, and I'm like, how the fuck did I'd have those moments like, I look around and go, where am I? How did I get here so quickly? So anyway, at one point, a series of events occurred where I was like getting tapped on the shoulder, like, and bear in mind, I was hallucinating often. So I look back now and I don't know how many stories are like hallucinations are real, but I had an experience where I was in this pub I used to go and hang out and just be around other reprobates called the Formanca, which means the thirsty dog. So I'm hanging the thirsty dog, and this guy and this girl who I knew were hanging out, and they were, I'd been hanging with them before and been out to different events and, underground parties. There was some pretty weird shit going on in Prague. Anyway, so I'm talking to them and they say, hey, come back to our house. We've got some music, some vinyl and some red wine and some hash and, come back. So anyway, So I go back to their house, and I was into heroin, so I had a bunch of smack. And I don't remember her name, but she pulled, like a room like this, wooden floor, she pulled the carpet off, and there was a pentagram on the floor. And she said, look, we're going to do a ceremony, we're going to raise a spirit, and you have the smack, we need that to get the ceremony going. And I just was like, this is not where I want to be, And I remember running out of there, running through the streets, and I don't know how far or where I went, but just going, I don't want to be in this darkness, and then running through the streets, and there's gargoyles everywhere all over Prague. There's all these buildings with the Gothic kind of, battlements, and there's freaking demons everywhere. I laugh now. If I look back, it's pretty funny what the mind can manufacture potentially, but also where I was at. Long story short, but I ran to the castle. I used to break into the castle. I had this way of jumping over the fences and getting to the main castle in Prague that overlooks the city. Because it had the most amazing view, and you could just sit in there and just smoke a spliff and just be high and just hang out, and then sometimes sleep up there. And I broke into the castle, jumped over the fence, got in there, and then we're just sitting there just shaking, A couple of other things have been happening, like this guy was talking to me about angels. It was like talking about the angels coming down and enveloping him and, saving him, basically. I'm Jewish by birth, so Jesus isn't really a part of my upbringing, other than the fact that he was a Jewish carpenter, but I don't subscribe to that. So there I am, and I had this moment of clarity, and I had this moment of light. I'm in this garden in the castle in Prague, and I cried out for help. I said, whatever you need me to do. And I called on the Christ, not Jesus necessarily, but the Christ, the consciousness I see as, sitting above and around, and it's everywhere. And I was filled instantaneously with light. And I had this light coming through the top of my head, threw me into the earth, and it just cleaned me, just totally cleaned me. And everything I had on me, I just threw away. And I felt like I'd been touched by something. And, in those moments, like I'm sure, we've all had moments where we have that awakening, and light bulbs or white light. A lot of people have a white light experience. And I knew that I was okay. And I also thought, straight away, I'm going to buy a bicycle tomorrow, and I'm riding my bike to Jerusalem. And so I went out and bought a bicycle the next day. Pretty much had like $100 on me in my pocket. Had a didge and a drum, and I rigged up this little rack, and I jumped on my bike and I rode to Jerusalem. I wanted to also go to Greece and go to the ocean. I thought my healing, I need to go and just bathe in the ocean and just get clean. So I rode up into Austria, rode through the forest in South Bohemia, because I'd burnt my passport as well. I had no passport. I had this moment where I was just like, I don't need an identity. So anyway, I had no passport. So I managed to get through the forest in South Bohemia, where they used the communist times, there was machine gun turrets and barbed wire. So there I am going through the forest, it's pretty surreal.
Sober?
Well, kind of still hallucinating, still pretty toxic, but I was sober. From that moment on, it's like I, just got cleaned, just got wiped clean. I just needed to go to the ocean. That's what I felt. So I needed a passport first. So I went to Vienna and I got a new passport. I remember lighting my passport on fire on the bridge in Prague, thinking, I was just such a rebel. I was just, out of the whole system. And I rode my bicycle into Yugoslavia, and the war was happening. And then I'm hearing mortar fire, and so I'm like, oh, fucking get out of here. So I turned my bike around to Slovenia, into Austria, back into Italy, and then down into Italy, and then took a ferry. I met these Christian missionaries. And at that point I was like, well, I've had this Christ experience, I might as well hang out with the Christians. So anyway, I get on the boat, and they were just like way too square, and I wasn't really feeling their vibe. So I kind of split off in Albania and went my own way. And my whole intention was to go to Greece at that point and go to the islands. I wanted to go to the island they filmed The Big Blue on, and go hang out in the monastery up there and just detox, just hang out. And also at that point, I got this gnarly staph infection. So the next thing I got these boils. I believe it was a lot of the toxicity and toxic, stuff coming out of my body. So I rode my bicycle through Albania and then Macedonia and then down to Greece. Rode through Greece I stopped in at the Delphic Oracle. Didn't get any insights. And then kept going into Piraeus, and then Piraeus I took a boat. I didn't know. I was busking mostly, and people probably feeling sorry for me or giving me a few coins to move me on. At one point, my drum, I had this goatskin drum that I'd made, and it fell off the back of my bike, and the skin popped, and I was bummed. I had this beautiful cactus drum, this agave cactus, pull the root out, killer, make beautiful drums. And I'm kind of in the mountains in Albania, and I'm up driving through these switchbacks, like freaking altitude, just switchbacking on the bike. And I find this pipe, and it was drinking water, and I had one of those old kind of goatskin flasks, like the shepherds have. And so I was filling my goatskin flask with water, and then this car pulls up, and there's no one spoke English in Albania. This guy gets out, and he speaks English. He's like, "Oh, what are you doing?" I'm like, "Oh, I'm riding my bicycle." And we have this conversation. I'm like, my drum's broken. I'm looking for a drum skin. He goes, "Oh, I see a shepherd." And so there's shepherds coming down with a flock of goats and sheep. And so he comes down, he comes to this little ravine where I'm pulling the water out, and the guy goes over to him, and they're like gesturing towards me, and the guy goes, come. And there was a pipe and there was a tree, and the guy pulls out a goat skin out of the tree. He's like, "There you are." I was like, "How much?" He's like, "Oh no, you take it." So anyway, I kept going on my journey. So I was busking and just making enough drachma at that point to keep going. Like I literally was like on fumes, which was kind of cool, to be like totally, fishing, catching a trout called a rainbow trout right then. And so I made my way to the islands and got off in the middle of the night on the wrong island. So instead of going to a Morgas, where they filmed The Big Blue, I went to this island called Donosa, which is beautiful. It was like population about 20. So I pretty much got to the beach, realized after the boat had gone that I was kind of on the wrong island. "Is it Morgas?" "No, it's Donosa." I'm like, the next ferry came in like another week kind of thing. So anyway, I pushed my bike up, and then I walked into this beach. Then I just got nude for a month and pretty much hung out on this beach, just getting sun healing and saltwater healing. And at some point, these two French dudes had come along, and I borrowed a spear gun off them. So I'm fishing for like little fish and taking them into town and swapping them for salad, Greek salad. And then also some stone fruit like apricots. So I was detoxing, and detoxifying and just getting the sun and the ocean healing. And the staff left me, and I managed to, clean up, and the salt and the sun, and, it was the magic. So I started to feel more connected to my body, and I still wasn't really able to deal with people yet, but I was coming back into my body and back into being grounded again. So that in a nutshell, Lauren, and there's a lot of stories within that story, in a nutshell was, for me, the last time I really suffered the lash of addiction in that form. It was a real clear spiritual awakening with light. And, that was like 25 years ago. Pretty much been clean off the heavy stuff ever since.
The Water People podcast is brought to you by the fine folks at Sanuk. They craft the comfiest footwear around and have been advocates for a more playful and inclusive surfing culture for more than 2 decades. Thanks, Sanuk, for your support and for encouraging water people around the globe to protect their happy places. Learn more about Sanuk's partnership with the Surfrider Foundation at sanuk.com. Thanks also to Gary McNeil Concepts for their support in making the podcast possible. Gary McNeil shapes some of the quirkiest boards around and is constantly innovating with new board materials like hemp and flax to reduce the petrochemical footprint of his boards. Learn more at garymcneilconcepts.com.au. What was your foundational relationship with water?
Amniotic fluid. And then after that, I'd have to say I've always wanted to go deep into the ocean. From a very young age, I was always jumping. We had a junk. I grew up in Hong Kong. I was born and raised in Hong Kong. And we had a junk, an old, beautiful Chinese junk, and we'd go out on it as much as we could. And I used to love just jumping in the ocean and going deep. And I used to fall asleep often with my mask and snorkel on at the end of the day. So I always had this, connection and relationship. I always thought I could breathe underwater as well. I had this remembrance of being able to breathe. And I used to practice in the bath. And I have memories still of breathing underwater. But I'm not sure if I was imagining it or it actually was me breathing underwater as a young kid. So my father was a lifeguard on the beach in Durban, of all places. And so he surfed as a youth. And so we used to surf in Hong Kong and body surf out in a place called Big Wave Bay. And so, I used to go to Hawaii with him every year, Christmas. He used to run the marathon. So I started riding boogie boards at Sandy Beach, in Makapu, and then just hanging out in Waikiki in the kind of the Kahala area, like Kaiko's or Black Point. And so from a young age, I was going to Hawaii. But when I moved back to Hawaii when I was 17 and got clean, I went into a rehab in Hawaii on the North Shore in Kahuku. I fell in love with the ocean in a different way. I found it to be such therapeutic healing and an alternative therapy, basically, an alternative, like putting something in the place of a bad habit. So to me, surfing is just, there's so many ways that it heals, from becoming a part of a tribe to, the interconnectedness of relationships in the water to the whole adventure. And I love the adventure part of it. Just resonates deeply of being in a group and sharing it, and then the stoke of it, and then the aquatic healing and everything to do with the ocean, and just being underwater, being above water, being on the shoreline where the water meets the earth and the sun. It's just like magical alchemy. So yeah, that's my relationship with water was and still is. From finding it for the first time and knowing this is it. This is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life, and hopefully I can pass it on to my kids, which so far seems to be the case. It's kind of like a little bit cliche and kind of kitschy, but living your life based on the tide and the swell, it becomes the central point of everything you do. Then you got to take care of your kids, and you have different responsibilities, and you got to provide as a man. I've got to provide as a man, and then I go back into the ocean and just get grounded and level again. And so the ocean and recovery for me are still two key parts of my existence and my life, and they mesh and blend and connect seamlessly. And so they're both a real healthy way that I can serve as well. And I look at it now with what I do as a service, both in recovery for myself. I need to do it for myself, but to give it away. The idea of, the 12th step in recovery talks about giving back to the suffering person. And everyone's got their ailments. So being present and being available, of service, and then the ocean, the healing energy of the ocean, and bring that into recovery, and it's all kind of symbiotic. And there's a lot of, of course, there's a lot of interconnectedness.
You have crafted a life largely around tides and swell and wind direction in a way that's so rare, and to see you showing your 3 beautiful kids and sharing that with Ness, but showing your kids how it can be done, how there are no barriers to living a life that is really crafted around healing and passion and adventure.
I know the power of our thoughts and the power of our words and the power of our actions and the power of the incredible innate ability of us to manifest and create, and how powerful we are, men and women, as creators. And so to be aware of your thoughts and to be aware of your actions, obviously, and then your habits is so potent, and I attempt and I try and I do my best to teach my kids how incredibly potent and powerful they are and can be to create and mold an existence and a life beyond their wildest dreams, and attract it all, and attract the people, and attract the energy, and attract the experiences, and create the life not based on anyone's parameters, limitless. There are no boundaries, and that's the beauty. I find that I'm still learning, obviously still learning, still here in this earth suit, on how expansive we can really get, and then coming back to that point of love, of like being compassionate and empathetic and wanting to share and guide. And that's the same in recovery, coming back to that point of service. Sometimes you just want to whack people on the head and say, wake up. This can all be yours. All you got to do is a few simple things. Surrender. Give it up. Allow this beautiful cosmic, beautiful energy to guide and to show you how beautiful you are, and also the incredible things you can create and the beautiful experiences you can have. And it doesn't involve money. It doesn't involve anything material. It's an inside job. But that's just not the way, because everyone's going to learn their own lessons their own way. So all you can do is live your life. All I can do is live my life to the best, to my most authentic self. And I'm still on the path, obviously. And so with the kids, it's such a gift to be able to, and also see the struggles and challenges, because they don't just, accept it as it is. So yeah, but I love adventure, and I love to curate new experiences and to bring my kids and friends and whoever else is on that trip to come in and feel the joy and feel the love and have the incredible experiences. And we continue to do that. And I hope it never stops.
What strikes me about the story you shared most deeply is the magicalness of a singular moment overwhelming you and cleaning you up. I mean, Addiction, not that I know from personal experience, but definitely from watching loved ones struggle, is that it's such a tumultuous roller coaster and can drag on and on for a lifetime. It seems like your journey was so instantaneous. Was that just for the sake of story, or was it really that instant a switch from being an addict to choosing something very different?
I was ready. I think that's it. I think you have to hit a bottom. I believe, and I know that no one can do it for you. No one can guide you there. It's a case of hitting a bottom or having a total breakdown where there is no human power that can help you. There is no single point of reference in the human physical plane. It's spiritual. And for me, I was ready, and I asked for help and intercession of a higher power, and that power was available, and I was ready, and I was able to accept it. It still feels pretty mystic. We talk about God and variety, spiritual experiences, as you slowly evolve and wake up and begin to practice the principles of spirituality in your life: honesty, open-mindedness, willingness, and that point of complete surrender and just giving up. That's what happened for me, and I had a white light experience, you could call it, where I was flooded with pure love, and that's what it was. It was like a real warm, loving, beautiful, I love you energy that just washed everything away,
Like a cosmic embrace.
Yeah. But really light, really white light. It was really like blinding, but not in a painful way. Blinding sounds so extreme. It was just very much An embracing, loving embrace.
When you experience others struggling with addiction, what does your heart feel to tell their heart?
I mean, I definitely have compassion and empathy for people who are struggling with addiction. That's the beauty of what Carl Jung and, he talked about the spiritual experience of one addict. I mean, we talk about it too in recovery, where the most therapeutic experience you can have is one addict helping another because of the lack of judgment. There's no pedestal. It's like being both suffering from the same affliction. Somebody might just have a little bit more time away from it. They have the empathy and compassion that somebody who hasn't suffered from it wouldn't have. So they understand the twisted nature of the sickness. So, I mean, I have definitely empathy and compassion, but I've seen time and time again too, the difference between, tough love and like loose, wishy-washy. You have to be really tough with people who have addiction, generally. You got to tell them how it is, and you got to tell the family how it is, and you got to be really honest and say, look, the likelihood of you having freedom from this is very slim. The numbers of people who actually get freedom from addiction and alcoholism is actually really slim. So I have compassion and definitely have compassion and empathy and love, and I also don't sugarcoat it. I'm not like trying to, oh, poor you, and it's like you need to be really clear. You need to do this, not that. You want to hang out with your friends? Good luck. It's like we say, you want to have another drink? Here's $5. Go have another drink. Go refund your misery and come back when you're ready. If somebody's really ready and they're crying and they're really wanting help, there's a whole infrastructure in place. And we will bend over backwards, no cost, because that was what was done for us. I've seen it time and time again. That's the beautiful nature of it. It's a spiritual program. There ain't no cost. The cost is everything. To get to there, you've fucking lost you've got your asses on fire. So somebody who's clean and sober a little while and who's really attempting to work the steps, really attempting to give back and be of service and add to the flow of life. Oh yeah, members, we will come together and give everything. And for new people, we talk about I'm talking about recovery meetings, right? Lauren, you're asking me a question about me as an individual, but the recovery fellowship is miraculous. And I've seen it time and time again, truly miraculous, without parallel, I think, as a spiritual fellowship on this planet. And because of the lack of structure, but at the same time, the incredible structure in place from a spiritual standpoint. And there's nothing in return. It's truly unconditional. It's like if we could have that as a foundation of politics or any organization, have in essence the steps and the traditions govern, it's a beautiful thing. But the problem is in the program, you get a lot of really whacked people with a lot of whacked ideas. And that's the general the case. It's like egomaniacs with inferiority complexes running the structure. But I'm getting away from the main issue. As far as putting the hand out and being there available 24 hours and 7 days a week, yeah, of course. I mean, if somebody needs help, it's my in a sense, it's my responsibility because that's what was done for me. And I still can list the people who saved my life, in a sense, who were there without any expectation of return,
A lot of us talk about surfing as another kind of addiction. How does that resonate with you?
I don't even know what you're talking about.
As one of the biggest brothers I know.
You should ask Vanessa that question. I think definitely that probably the word is moderation and balance, which I'm not very good at. I think when it starts affecting your relationships in your life in a negative way, like if you're just shirking everything to just quest after that high, which we do, the barrel, the incredible drop on a big wave, just drawing a line and getting a railing and just feeling that pure,
The more.
That is unquenchable because words don't describe it, right? So that's the balance. There's the balance somewhere in there where, yeah, look, I've got 3 kids and a wife and a business, and a lot of people I'm responsible for, employees and partners and the rest of it. And I still, I'm able to balance it mostly. Sometimes I take a little bit much. I take maybe not a little bit much, but I'll kind of take more, and I'll get pulled up, and kind of rebalance. Not really, I tend to sway on the side of like, if I could live it all the time, I would. There's often crosses my mind. This is just the mind. It's like, I could just get a caravan, just split, and leave the kids and leave Nessie and leave the business and just, and that lasts like 0.1 of a second, and the reality comes in. Maybe later I could do that, but at this point I couldn't. So, I think surfing is a really healthy addiction. I think it's definitely, maybe addiction is a word that gets thrown around a little bit too much. I think it's more
maybe
like,
too lightly.
Yes, because I think if you're in tune with yourself and your body and the rhythms of nature and the ocean and the tides and everything, it's a give and take. So you go and you replenish, and then you come back and you can give more, right? I know for me, if I'm surfing and I'm clean and clear and I'm back in my family unit, I'm a better person, as opposed to the other side.
What I see from the outside, part of the genius of the way you construct your life, the way you've crafted a beautiful life, is you make time and space for long stretches of play. You and Ness take your family to off the beaten track locations for extended periods of time and homeschool and really walk the walk of committing to your passions and committing to understand what it means to live a deep and meaningful surfing life.
It's key. It's so key. You guys are on the pinnacle of that one. In the sense I say that because I'm so blessed to have crafted a life and created a life that enables us to do that. And Vanessa as well. She's also, as a team we have, and I say me, but it's us, and we have the ability and the financial freedom to do that. And I spend money on experiences, obviously necessities in life, like, in medical insurance and all that kind of stuff on some levels. That's an important investment. We own our own house up at Uluwatu. That being said, it's like, I'm not indebted to anyone. I'm not beholden to anyone. No one can tell me when to work and not to work. So I've created that to enable us to do this. And I respect the fact that not everyone has the ability to do that. But I think that a lot of people are afraid to step out of their preconceived concepts of safety and security and really put themselves out there and take a chance. And for the time being, we're doing it. We've been doing it for a little while now. My Flynn's 12 and the twins are 10. So I'd say for the last 12 years, maybe not 12, but maybe 10, 11. We've had the ability, and we're blessed.
If you or a loved one is struggling with addiction, please know that there are so many great resources waiting to help. NA.org or AA.org are starting places to connect with meetings and resources in your community. Thanks to Jake for his humor and sweet adventurous spirit. You can learn more about Jake Mackenzie on Instagram at JakeDrifter or about his iconic surf shop and cafe in Bali via driftersurf.com. Special thanks always to our sound engineer, Shannon Soul Carroll. You can find more about his music, gigs, and musical activism on Instagram at Shannon Soul Carroll. On behalf of myself, Lauren Hill, and my partner in rhyme, Dave Rastovich, thank you for making the time to listen with us. We'll be continuing the conversation on Instagram, where we're at Water People Podcast. You can find show notes and links from each episode on our website, waterpeoplepodcast.com.